Hello, hello, and welcome to this episode of the Nerds of the North podcast, episode number 28. 28 episodes in total. We're killing it. We're getting one episode at a time done.
We're living our best life.
We're living our best life. We're doing what we can. We are trying our best.
We're living our truth.
We are going to be discussing Eternals today, the newest film in the MCU universe. And we're going to be giving our takes on the movie overall, and I think that's pretty much going to be most of the content of this episode. We'll probably go on our normal tangents as per usual, but until we get to that point, I am host number one, Matt, and joining me today, as always, is host number two,
Nick.
Dramatic pause.
I just need to say my name. It's just like when you prompt me, I just kind of want to do something dumb, and my mind is like running, like, what can I do that's funny or like kind of flippant? But then the only thing I can come up with is not saying anything.
Just leave me hanging for as long as possible.
Yeah, sorry. Dead air is as we say in the radio business.
Come on, man, say the name, damn it.
Two wars? There's two wars?
But Nick, what did you, so we'll give some, like, we'll get into more of an in-depth discussion on stuff, I'm sure, but what was your take on Eternals overall? And I guess we'll kind of do some ratings maybe near the end of the episode. I don't know, we'll just play it by ear. But Eternals, what'd you think?
I'll hold off on what my overall opinion is just to build up some suspense here, but I will say just up front that I think that the ratings it's gotten on Rotten Tomatoes are unfair, to say the least. This movie did a lot right for me, and I actually ended up enjoying it in some ways just as much as Shang-Chi, and in other ways more than Shang-Chi. I definitely liked it more than Black Widow. Did not care for Black Widow much. But I thought the strongest points for me, I think, were, I love lore building, and this movie did a lot to explore the lore and bringing in these really huge concepts that I think is really fun, like the Celestials, the backgrounds of the Eternals, the Deviants, humanity. It even had some stuff with Thanos, because Thanos is actually he's actually a part. I think he's either an Eternal or he's an Eternal, I think, partly. He's like, he has some Eternal blood or Celestial blood, and I should probably know that, but he's definitely, and not to spoil anything, but Star Fox at the end is Thanos' brother.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that's one of my favorite things, because you said you haven't watched Gurren Lagann, right? Well, you only watched.
I watched a little bit, yeah.
And I don't really want to spoil that show, but one of the big twists in it, I'll just go ahead and say it because I don't know if you give a shit.
Yeah, please do.
So the first half of Gurren Lagann, essentially, you think the enemy is this guy, and then they kill him halfway through. But then it turns out he was actually trying to prevent Earth's population from getting up to 1 million. Because if the Earth's population got up to 1 million, then the Earth was going to get attacked by this cosmic force that would wipe out all of humanity. And so I think what the MCU doing, which is what I love this kind of stuff, and I think it's actually hinted at pretty strongly, is that Thanos, by eliminating half the population of the universe, specifically half the intelligent population, that was one of the things the intelligent population was one of the things that was going to lead to the birth of Tiamat in the center of Earth.
Right.
Because Earth essentially was like an egg for a Celestial. That by doing that, he was actually saving the planet, or from Tiamat from hatching, because it needed that intelligent energy or whatever. I don't know if it was like feeding off our fears or something. I can't remember exactly what they said.
Yeah, I feel like that does end up being something that is a little bit of a sticking point for me. Transformations like that are generally like an exchange of some kind, like something is absorbed, something is taken one party to another, and Tiamat as a Celestial, it needs the population of Earth's intelligent life to reach a certain point to be born, but it doesn't really seem to be having like any kind of any effect on the actual population of Earth. It's just a matter of, I guess, hitting a certain threshold. Like, it's really vague the way it's worded.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty vague, which I guess I would have liked that explored a little bit more because I mean, from a certain vantage point, I mean, the Earth was just like, you know, a feeding. The Eternals are just like making sure that the Earthlings lived long enough and
Mhm.
populate like had enough children to actually feed this thing. But I mean, without their
Yeah.
knowledge, but
But like they're like in terms of like it was always pointed out that it was intelligent life. And so like in Tiamat being born, like it wasn't like everyone was turned into knuckle dragging cavemen, right? Like it just kind of seemed like life went on more or less, except for the earth like nearly splitting in two, whatever.
yeah,
But
I mean, it's fine. I know, like in theory, like if some creature was emerging from the Earth like that, it would have probably caused a lot more earthquakes and crap while it was coming out of the sea like that, and definitely like tsunamis and stuff. But
right.
at the same time, like I'm fine with it. It's science fiction, it's fantasy, it's pulpy, so I can live with a little bit of suspension of disbelief in this case.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that is a fair point. I know that I personally had some grievances with that not being explored more, but I will agree that I think it's a thing that I can let go. But I do have gripes with other parts of the movie. But
yeah, and there's a little bit of confusion too, like what is a celestial? Well, okay, so no, there's not confusion. It's just because the way Kurt Russell's character was portrayed in Guardians of the Galaxy Part Two,
mhm.
which was Peter Quill's father, he was a celestial, and he looks a little bit different than what we've seen of what celestials look like so far. So,
Sure.
but then James Gunn came out and like clarified a few things there. And I mean, technically, Peter Quill was half celestial as well, but he's saying he actually gave that up when he killed his dad, essentially. So, yeah.
Hmm.
Ego, the Living Planet, I should say, was his father.
Right.
But yeah, I just really dug the lore. I really liked that kind of stuff. I liked the way it was filmed. I thought it was really, obviously, really beautiful.
Mhm.
Another huge thing that I liked a lot, and I won't get into the end credits. I think we should maybe end the video with those because those are really fun. Like I thought they did; those are like excellent ones. Those got me really excited for the future, honestly. But the other
Sure.
thing I was really excited about or liked a lot that I wasn't sure I was going to like were the characters. Um, I thought they did a really good job with the characters. I like that there's a bunch of characters with new powers that we haven't
Mhm.
seen yet in the MCU. I liked Kingu. I thought he was really great. I can never say the actor's name. What is it? Najani or something?
Kamal Nanjiani.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did a great job. He was honestly hilarious. Like I think my favorite line was, "I don't do it for the views."
Yeah.
What was it? The
Yeah.
whole exchange was what was it? It was like you became an actor. He's like, no, I'm a director too. Went on some YouTube videos. Do you have any got any views for that? I don't do it for the views. That was really
Yeah, I think it was like he and Druig
Druid,
were
yeah.
arguing in that argument, and he's like, "I've also directed some things." Oh yeah, what? Like some on or like some YouTube videos or some online videos.
Yeah.
And call like, oh yeah, how many views have they got? He's like, I don't do it for the views.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And yeah, I also like the two they exchange where I can't remember I don't want to say little, that seems diminishing, but like his producer, whatever that was following him around everywhere, his agent. When he's like, yeah, when he first met me, he thought I was a vampire, so he tried to stake
stake
me.
me in the heart.
And yeah, I saw it's really really funny. Um,
Yeah,
uh,
no, I think like Kingo, and then his valet Karoon were like 100% some like major highlights in this movie, and that they were just so funny together. And like, I mean, Kamal Nanjiani being a comedian, I think lends tremendously into how well he's received
yeah,
as a character in this because he's just so funny.
I also really liked. I liked Gilgamesh too. I was kind of sad when he died, but I thought he was like a big sweetheart. I liked his relationship with Thena. I actually maybe my favorite funny line in the movie came from him. It could have like when he was, I think Kingu is drinking his like sweat beer. He's
Yeah.
like, and he was like, "Hey, do you have any other drink besides this?" And then there's this offhand comment. He's like, "What, man? I thought you liked it."
Yeah, right.
It was really funny. That delivery was really great. Um,
No,
I
I think
saying,
that's
yeah,
something that honestly I would say that the two, like out of all the Eternals that we meet and their interactions with one another, that like the two like driest characters are the leads, like the quote unquote
yeah.
leads.
No, no, I was
And
definitely gonna get into that. I
yeah,
wanted to
like
explore that a little
Cersei
bit.
and Icarus are just like they're the straight men of the group, or at least they certainly play it that way.
At least initially, yeah.
Yeah, and like I think we've gotten well into spoiler territory at this point. So like Icarus, I think turns into a infinitely more interesting character based on how far he's willing to go, in that he's willing to betray his family, quote unquote family, his group, for this
Well,
mission for the Celestial.
and in a way, I feel like from his vantage, I think he wasn't betraying his family. He was actually trying to protect them
Mm-hmm.
from, the what was it? Well, yeah, because he knew that the deviants were going to come back, and he was using them to distract them. That was his plan. But he's also kind of protecting them from actually dying from the deviants.
I mean, he was using the deviants as a distraction, but like ultimately he was
And I guess he
it
did
meant
betray Ajax.
yeah, he ultimately was attempting to fulfill Erishem's mission for Earth in being the egg or the vessel for Tiamat, more than he was trying to prevent the deaths of his family. Like the only, and I refer to them as family only in that like they arrived on Earth together. They're not like related to one another. It's expounded upon at one point that the Eternals essentially are very sophisticated robots. Like they're automatons, more or less. And so like they're synthetic life. And like they're not related to one another. There's like they have thoughts and feelings, but their memories are removed and implanted whenever it's convenient for them to begin a new mission to give life to another celestial.
Yeah.
And that's their whole purpose, is to protect a planet, to enable intelligent life to take hold and to grow, and then for that planet to ultimately uh, feed the celestial whatever intelligent life energy they're using to give birth. Also, I'm not seeing this directly. Do we know who the voice actor was for Arsham, for like the god figure in this? We've seen this
I
figure
don't know, but
before.
I thought that I love that the voice of it. I thought was really cool, and just the way the movie ended too, with him just like showing up right. And that's another thing too. Like he shows up right next to Earth, and if that actually happened, the gravity on Earth would probably just get so fucked up.
Right.
So people would probably just die just from him showing up like that. There'd probably be tons of earthquakes and crazy tidal things. So,
So I guess
but
the
whatever.
voice
Again,
the voice actor for Arsham, I guess, was someone named David Kay.
yeah, I don't know.
Um, oh, oh, interesting. Boy, this is a throwback for you and me. He did the voice of Megatron in Beast Wars.
Oh, okay, no wonder I liked it.
Yeah, so
What
that
is
tracks.
his Megatron's signature thing? Like,
Yes.
yes,
It's
yeah.
that and being called my queen.
Completely off track. And I'll just mention this briefly, but they just recently did like a new Beast Wars on Netflix where they brought like generations together. And I don't know
Oh,
if you saw
yeah.
that at all, but I was a little, I couldn't even watch it because they changed the voice actor so much. And
Mhm.
Megatron was like the Beast Wars versions of him. They didn't have the same actor, which was voice actor, which come on. And he was just like a little bitch. Like he's just like, sorry. I mean, I'm cursing a lot on here. Usually I don't.
We should curse as much as we fucking want. It's our podcast, our rules. I don't care.
Yeah.
Uh, but no, yeah, like I think I'm aware of what you're talking about with that like not a remake, but it's like a clashing or like a bringing together of
Yeah.
modern day Transformers with the Beast Wars
Well,
characters
the
being
issue
brought
with
in.
big issue too with it is like they have a lot of the original Maximals, but they didn't have. They only had like 3 Predacons. They had Megatron, Black Arachnia, and Dinobot. And Dinobot. Spoilers, but he defects to the Maximals pretty early on, and he does.
So no like Tarantulas and
No Tarantulas. I love Tarantulas. He's like my favorite character on that show, and they didn't
I was
have
gonna
him.
say Tarantulas is your big one. And
Yeah,
then
they didn't have him. They had Scorponok, but he was like just a bunch of there was like bunches of Scorponoks. Like it was weird.
oh, so they were like
No
they were kinda-
Waspinator, no Waspinator, no Inferno. I don't really care about Pterosaur, but no Quick Strike. None of the big ones. No Rampage.
yeah, that's like
Anyway, we can get back on Eternals
no, but no, I do agree.
because they are
that
making
is
like a
big
Beast
bummer.
Wars. The next Transformers movie, which I think got delayed, it's going to be like about the Beast Wars, which I know it's going to be crappy, so I'm not going to probably even watch it. But it's like one of those things. Like I love the show so much, and I know they're just going to ruin it in the movie, so I don't even really know if I care that they're
I'd rather
going.
watch the original content than watch this new drivel that
Yeah,
they're
if they
gonna
just
try and
remade
feed to
Beast
us.
Wars, had like the same exact, just use the same voice actor, like just use everything the same except upgrade the computer animation, I'd be in heaven. Anyway,
Right, like just the voice acting was just so good in that.
yeah.
You said Quick Strike, and to me it's like Quick Strike Terror. He's got like a western. He's got like a
What
western,
tarnation?
like a southern accent. Oh shit.
Yeah, my queen,
Um,
your
oh,
turn
shit.
to burn.
I guess we should ultimately get back to
Yes, Eternals.
to talking about Eternals.
Well, I was going to continue on too about just going through some of the characters here and
But,
what my thoughts are about them.
Can
you hear me?
Oh yeah, now I can. There you go.
I was just saying that I was just going to continue on going through some of the characters and what my thoughts on about them were, and then we can kind of just talk about that
please
a little
do.
bit. So we already talked about Kingo. I said Gilgamesh I thought was pretty good. I liked him. I was kind of sad when he died because I thought his relationship with Dina was ultimately it seemed a little bit like he was put in the friend zone, but whatever. I guess I'll go through like my favorites. So at first, and then we can go down the list. Who else did I like? I actually really liked. I think her name's Bakari. She was the one that used sign language.
Yeah,
Bakari. I ended up liking, and I just like that actress. I saw her recently in another movie, and she is actually deaf in real life, but she was in Sound of Metal.
Sound of Metal. Okay.
Yeah, that was the one with Riz Ahmed or something like that. I probably got that name wrong.
Riz Ahmed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was in he was in like, was it HBO or an Amazon show?
Yeah, I know he was in Rogue One.
The Night of is where I know him from.
I haven't seen that, but I think I've heard of it and thought it was good.
Yeah, it's like a murder mystery.
Anyway,
I guess it's a BBC thing.
I really liked Makari. I thought she just has like a really strong energy. I like that she's a speedster. So I hope that doesn't mean we're not going to get Quicksilver coming back from the X-Men movies.
Yeah.
And who else? Druig, I actually ended up liking him too. I like his relationship with Makari. I like that he started wearing a leather jacket. I don't know, just kind of was cool. I like that. I actually thought, I know a lot of people didn't like her, but I kind of like Sprite. I kind of just like that sort of it's gonna sound weird, but I kind of like that sort of archetype of a character. So I know people didn't like her, but I actually kind of liked her. And some people were saying it was creepy too that she had a crush on Icarus, but at the end of the day, like I'm like, it's fine. She's really old, and I've watched enough anime that I'm not creeped out by this as much as maybe I should have been.
I mean, yeah, you're getting into dangerous territory talking about like seemingly like underage characters having potentially romantic relationships with adult characters.
Have you ever seen this movie? It's called Blank Check.
No.
Okay, it was like from the 90s. It was like this movie made for kids, and I watched it just randomly on Disney Plus. I remember I saw it. I didn't remember much about it. It's so weird. So this kid basically just gets like $1 million because I can't remember why, but I think it's like some sort of criminal thing that he accidentally like he was privy to, and he just kind of gets $1 million, and so he like buys a house, and
Okay,
that was back when $1 million was actually worth something. And
sure.
then like he starts having almost a weird pseudo relationship with like this 30-year-old woman. It's so strange. They're like running through like fountains and stuff, like dancing, and it's like, and I think they almost like kiss at one point.
Is that? Oh man, that sounds very familiar. Isn't there like a scene from that movie where she talks about like when he grows up or
I
something,
can't remember. It's been a
or like
while. I just
several
remember
years from
like
now?
I was watching this. I'm like, this is very awkward. To sound
Yeah,
like
this
Charlie
is.
Day from It's Always Sunny. But um, yeah, it's just so weird. And then I kind of afterwards I was kind of curious, and it turns out other people felt the same way. This movie's called Blank Check. So if you ever are curious about weird boys
Actually, what
dating
immediately
old
comes to
ladies.
mind is Big, the like Tom Hanks movie. Um, like where he like makes a wish on
Oh, I think
like
I know
one
what
of
you're
those
talking
like
about.
fortune teller things. He puts a quarter in, it wishes he was big, and then like
Yeah, and so
so
he
a
becomes like a.
child
I know what you're
becomes an
talking about.
adult. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's a very similar type of concept, except that it's even more extreme in that like the character of Sprite is thousands of years old. Like she is very old in terms of like her literal age, but her appearance is one of a like teenager or a preteen, something like that. And so it does make it a little weird, but like I think they spell it out a number of times and sometimes borderline incorrectly, of like how old they are at the time. Like I know this is something my wife pointed out that when when the initial argument, like when Thena starts losing her memories, when she starts becoming mad weary,
I literally like that word mad weary. That's
I
cool.
thought that was kind of cool too. Yeah, like it
Sounds
took
like
me a
something like
minute.
from like a fairy or something. I don't know. I like that kind of weird stuff.
Yeah, but like when that initially happens, Druig says that they've been doing this or they haven't completed their mission after 7,000 years. But then he uses that same time scale later in the movie when it's present day. So like when the 7,000 year mark seems to be kind of not earmarked very well.
Well,
I
I mean,
think it
if
was
you think about
honestly.
it, like the Spanish, when was that? Like the 1400s, 1500s. So
Mhm.
technically, we're only like 600 years from then. So I mean, to us, it seems like that was a long time ago, but to him, it's probably.
Yeah, but to say 7,000 years in one place, that's like nearly like 600 years for a normal person is like might as well be 1,000 years, right? Like it seems like just kind of a like I might be nitpicky, but I will say that like if you're going to be messing with time and when the perception of it is in terms of how long they've been there, they should be consistent. Like
Yeah.
say
Again,
six
like
thousand years rather than 7,000 years.
I can weirdly forgive it just because my suspension of disbelief was
Mm,
properly tweaked, I guess.
yeah, I mean, I think there are worse things that this movie does in terms of plot. Because again, I'm going to reiterate that I find the plot the weakest point of this movie. I think that the relationships between the characters are really good, and like you said, the world building. I really love the world building of this movie. I think like I remember you and I discussing the on another podcast the spoilers or like the leaks that were put out about this movie,
Which were 100% accurate,
which
by the
pretty
way.
much everything was accurate, right?
Yeah.
And so like in knowing that, like in hearing it in those leaks, I was like, there is no way in hell they're gonna like properly bring this to the big screen. And ultimately, lore wise, background wise, I was actually really impressed with how well they like got across the point of like, all right, a bunch of sentient robots show up to Earth to protect it because Earth is an egg. Like they got that point across really nicely, and I thought they did a good job of doing that. Um, like yeah, like my issues with the movie are not with the cast really, and it's not with the background they set up or the lore. It's the plot of the movie itself that I think is the weakest point.
Yeah, I guess just to finish up what I was gonna say too, I was gonna go through the characters here too.
Yeah, please.
And I was just gonna say, probably, so going down my list, Thena I thought was an interesting character, but I did kind of feel like they almost had to invent like a whole storyline for her that wasn't that really that compelling because she's such a big name actress. So they're like, oh, we have Angelina Jolie playing Thena. We have to have her do something. So let's create this whole side plot with this deviant where he's evolving, and they have to face off. I felt like that was kind of weirdly, just felt like it came out of nowhere, sort of, and it didn't really. Well, I guess in a weird way, it did kind of relate to the plots overall,
Sure.
like themes of evolution and stagnancy, and uh, I guess even in a weird way, reincarnation with how if once they died, the Eternals, once they completed their mission, they'd be reborn
Mhm.
somewhere entirely new without any memories. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, I guess in that respect, I guess it played with the themes. I just don't think it was really done that well as far as being compelling and me wanting to watch it. And I think for the most part, Angelina Jolie did a good job. I'm actually excited that I thought she
Mhm.
was going to die for sure because I thought she'd only be around for one movie. But to see her
Right.
still being around as, I don't ever think she's going to have like her own movie, but continue on as like a side character, I think was a cool choice for sure.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, I feel like we're all but like at the execution of it, we're like waiting for a Eternals and Guardians crossover. Like, because that just seems like the very obvious set of characters, especially with Thor being involved with the Guardians now. We're not necessarily involved, but he's with them so far as we're aware, from the end of the Infinity
yeah.
Saga.
Well, too, like we know Thor, and I saw this theory on Reddit. He's the main enemy in the new Thor movie, I guess. It's not like a
Wait, who
spoiler,
is?
like it's well known. It's played by Christian Bale. A pretty big deal.
Oh yeah.
He's gonna play Gore the God Butcher. So
Mhm.
there's some theories out there, and I thought it was an interesting theory or a decent theory. That part of that is to deal with the Eternals being associated with gods, and he's trying to kill them for what they did, what they do essentially.
Sure.
Which is that's actually an interesting question too, because Kingo mentions that he knew Thor as a boy. So I don't know if in some way that if Thor, since he's a god obviously, if he's could potentially be an Eternal as well. I don't think he is, but I'm kind of curious what the crossover there is. You know?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I would say that Kingo was just he was on Earth long enough to have had an interaction with Thor as a boy, perhaps. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but
I
who's to
good
say?
point. Yeah. I guess going on, who else do we have left here? There's probably a big one that I'm missing. I was just
They
gonna kind
got
of lump in Cersei and Icarus together. I
mhm,
didn't hate Cersei's character, but she was a little dry. Like I don't feel like we really know much about her besides she loves the earth and sort of is like a has like a very nurturing energy towards children, it seems. And then Icarus, who I thought was a very boring character, didn't really have much uh, chemistry with Cersei. I didn't think, which is unfortunate. And I think that's for me, that's my major issue with the movie is the lack of like caring about that relationship. Because I think a lot of the movie, especially the ending, is built up around that relationship. Um,
I feel
but
like Druig and Makari have like what seemed like a more engaging romance or seeming relationship, even if you're going to compare them to Cersei and Icarus. Like,
for sure, and I think there was some natural chemistry between the actors there too. So,
mhm,
and the movie wasn't built around it either. So it doesn't
yeah,
have to be this like cosmic love affair that the whole universe
Yeah.
revolving around or something. It was more innocent and childlike, like two kind of like, like high school lovers or something, which was kind of fun to see.
Sure.
But yeah, I think Icarus, if he survived that, I mean, obviously he flew into the sun, which is another play on that mythology of the character Icarus, but
Hmm.
be interested to see if he lives. I think he could be another good addition to like the Thunderbolts, maybe, but we'll see. I mean, that it is interesting how much of the evil Superman trope has become like it seems like it's you see it all over the place now, and
Well, I
yeah.
mean, they directly call out. I mean, I was surprised
That they
in
called
watching
out
this
Superman and
that they
Batman.
literally say Superman, yeah, Batman, and like it was a direct DC call out. More or less, DC Comics is canon in Marvel now as a result of this
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. Well, to me too, I don't hate that idea. It just seems kind of weird that in previous movies, if that was the case, you would think someone would be like, "Oh, like Thor, what are his powers? Oh, he can he's kind of like Superman, So like, it's weird
See,
that no one
yeah,
had said that at all. Or Tony Stark can be like, "Oh, he's rich like Batman," and
that's fair. And I don't know if it's just because Marvel's felt emboldened by their success versus DC,
yeah,
because like I would say that Marvel has absolutely trounced DC pretty much at every opportunity in terms of just like even just box office numbers in terms of their films. Um, I think DC has some potential to catch up at some point, but in terms of like their live action films, like Marvel's just so far ahead as to not DC's not even a problem. So,
yeah,
which is too bad, but
yeah. I mean, you could go into that too, but I guess there's another character I forgot. His name's Fastos. I guess the first openly gay Marvel character, I believe. Um, and actually, that relationship
so
got the
yeah.
movie banned in a few countries apparently. So I liked Fastos. I thought he had a lot of hearts. So I say I like the character. Yeah, I'm excited to see where they're going with him. I hope he gets to stick around. So which seems like he is. I mean, he got taken by what's the eternal that celestial's name again? Atrium or something.
Oh, all right. Uh, oh shoot, Atra, why am I?
A
Arishem, Arishem.
Arishem, yeah, he took Kingu, Fastos, and I believe Cersei at the end of the film. So,
Mhm.
which I don't know why he couldn't find. Well, I mean, who knows? I don't know why he couldn't find the other ones that were on the spaceship, but apparently that's a thing. Anyway, and I guess finishing up here, what do we got? We have Dane Whitman. We got Kit Harington as Dane Whitman. I love that character, so I'm excited for him to be around. And I always have been a big fan of Jon Snow. So,
Sure.
and I guess we're getting into a little spoiler territory, but Chloe Zhao did say who was talking to Dane at the end of the movie when he was
It's
trying to
Blade. It's Blade, right?
yeah.
It's
Which
Blade. Yeah.
it's pretty exciting, I think.
I just made that connection, and it wasn't actually from having seen the movie or even us talking. It was only looking at the casting because I had
Mahershala Ali.
yeah, like I had no idea that that was the voice, because I was thinking it was like another Nick Fury moment where he was like Nick Fury was bringing in. I either thought it was maybe Nick Fury or a U.S. agent. I was thinking maybe like Black Knight would be like a part of the Thunderbolts or something, having no
Yeah.
background and knowing about any
Well,
of
it
this.
seems like he'll probably be on sort of the paranormal side of the Marvel universe, which I think is going to be sort of headed by Blade. It seems like so. He might be part of like the Midnight Suns, I think.
Ooh, okay, that would be super cool.
Yeah, and I
Actually,
don't know how Morbius fits into this shit. So if he's going to be part of the Marvel universe or not. So I'm kind of
mean,
hoping not.
I mean, I'll try. My initial judgment on that is, "Yee," but I will try and leave my official judgment on the table until I see Morbius. But I have a lot of qualms with Jared Leto as the leading man.
Yeah.
in being a vampire character.
Yeah. I'm kind of nervous about Kit Harington too. Apparently, the guy's just box office poison. So, like,
Really? What leads you to say that?
all the movies he's been in haven't really done that well. I think Eternals is doing okay at the moment. It's probably the best returning movie that he's been in. But the Game of Thrones actors in general don't seem to like be able to like use their Game of Thrones history to actually help out a movie. Like, what do we have? Like Jean Grey, played by Sophie Turner. I don't think that was a great
Yeah,
choice.
but like the thing is though, like I don't really think that's necessarily the actor or actress's fault for why
No,
like
I mean
Game
I
of
really
Thrones
like Kit
wasn't.
Harrington. So
Yeah, like I think he's a good actor. I think most of the cast of Game of Thrones was quite good. It's mostly an issue with D&D and how they like handled the end of Game of Thrones.
yeah. Well, I think even before that series ended, they were having some issues getting casted and well, not getting casted, but just like their movies doing well.
Yeah,
But I guess
but
yeah, we don't have to get hung up on that stuff. I think that's all the character. The
yeah.
only other one I can think of is the I don't even know if he had a name, but the lead of the Deviants. I kind of felt like he was sort of weak. I don't know if he really needed to be in the film. Again, I kind of almost thought they included him just so Angelina Jolie had a nemesis to go up against at the end. So
I'll have some opinions on that after I come back from a real quick bathroom break. I know I
okay,
gotta go. So,
all right, let me pause.
all right. So, like, kind of getting back into some of my opinions on the characters, I guess I mostly agree with Nick in terms of like my initial impressions of all the characters. Like he and I briefly spoke before the podcast started of like Cersei and Icarus feeling a little dry in comparison to the rest of the characters. I almost wish I don't know. I mean, I guess they gave Sprite plenty of screen time for sure.
I think they did pretty well with at least giving everyone a little bit of screen time.
Yeah,
Screen
and
time.
I feel like everyone except for the main two, Icarus and Cersei, felt like they were, I don't know, maybe more relatable or just more intriguing. Whereas, like, both of them were just kind of straight men
Yeah,
type characters that didn't really ultimately
I do
have
think they were
a lot
like
of personality.
sort of supposed to be like star-crossed lovers, and we were supposed to engage with them like that a little bit, but
Mhm.
I don't really know if it really worked necessarily, just because I don't think their relationship was all that compelling. So
Yeah, no,
they did have Marvel's first, I think, on-screen sex scene, so that was pretty interesting.
yeah, I mean, I guess that's like a good first to have because I think, I mean, this has ultimately been my opinion on like sex and films and things of that nature. I just think Hollywood and movies in general should lean harder into like just having sex be an acceptable thing versus violence by comparison. Um,
It's amazing
well,
sometimes.
well, yeah, well, like we'll let our children watch movies where people's heads are being cut off or their heads blown off by or blown to bits by means of guns or grenades or what have you. But you know, a single titty on screen is God, no, God, the children. Like so, um, so I think that's a step in the right direction. I don't necessarily think that Disney, Disney or Marvel are going to be the heralds of bringing that kind of content to the masses, but it's a step in the right direction, I guess. Um, I will say that in a lot of conversations I've had with my wife about this film, um, knowing how hard movie studios push for their films to appear in China, I was wondering about Festus um, and like his relationship with his husband, how that would get edited into a Chinese version of this movie, because they sure as shit are not going to have a gay couple with a son in the Chinese version of this movie. They cut out the lesbian kiss out of Rise of Skywalker for Chinese audiences. So, and I feel like the way that they cut the movie does kind of like lead it affirmed my belief that like his relationship with his husband was going to ultimately not be very important in terms of the plot, but it was definitely a thing that could very easily be cut out for audiences in countries where
Yeah.
Disney wants to make a buck.
Well, I don't know what their ultimate strategy with that was going to be, but this movie isn't releasing in China for several reasons. A lot of it to do is with the director is Chloe Zhao, who apparently had some
Mhm.
controversial statements, at least in China, about the Communist Party.
Sure.
Whether that be a true, like her true opinion or not. So yeah, so the movie's not going to get released in China. Neither did Shang-Chi because of some others. Well, I don't know if it was going to get released there anyway, but Simu Liu made some comments about China that apparently it was not taken very well by the Communist Party over there. So that movie's not going to get released in China either.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, good. Like, like I don't think our I don't think American movie studios should be bending their will to be in Chinese theaters because of their quite frankly wrong beliefs. But I mean, that's an entirely different topic for a different time. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, like I know that my favorite character was definitely Kingo. Um, I like I've said, I've really enjoy Kamal Nanjiani outside of this movie as a comedian, and seeing him as a hero in a Marvel movie made me really happy. And then it's kind of a close tie for second place in terms of like versus Gilgamesh and Festus.
What did you think of Kingu not being at the final battle?
I okay, yep. Here we're getting into plot shit. So I really have some serious issues with the later third of this movie. And it's most like I guess it's mostly from the point where it's after everything that starts happening in after they find Druig. So Druig's little society that he's built for I guess 20 generations in this jungle. And it all begins with Cersei's ability to turn one deviant, a organic piece of matter, into a tree. And like that ends up being very important down the road. But like from that point forward, that's when I started having real issues with the plot. And part of that is Kingo just not being a part of the final act of the movie at all until everything is finished. He's in the very end when the characters are on their merry way and they're leaving. Um, he's there in saying goodbye to Sprite while she begins her life as a human, because that happens. I don't actually have much of an issue with Sprite becoming human. I think that's an extreme result for her issues with that she was having. She could just as easily have been aged up, and that would have fixed all of her problems, in my opinion. Uh,
Yeah, well, I think too that remember the actress is going to age too, so it's kind of a
right.
fix.
Yeah, and maybe that'll be something they handle down the road. But
And she
yeah,
lost her powers too, because I was kind of thinking that, and they did confirm that in a later interview when she became human. So.
yeah. So she loses her powers. Kingo's not in the final fight. Um, Druig just kind of gives up in terms of his importance in this. He was all in. He's like, all right, I'm going to be the one to deal with the problem of this celestial. And in all of the fighting, he gets blasted by Icarus into the earth, and everyone thinks, oh no, he's dead. And meanwhile, I'm thinking, like, okay, Druig's coming back at some point. We just don't know when. He shows back up and knocks Sprite on the head to deal with her as an issue. And then Druig's just like, all right, well, this is your fucking problem now, Cersei. Bye. And he just kind of gives off the responsibility that he wholeheartedly accepted to deal with the celestial. And like, so that ends up being a problem for me. And then ultimately, like the final conflict where Cersei is attempting to turn Tiamat, the celestial who's being born from Earth, uh, she's attempting to turn him to stone. And the whole idea here is that they would bring their powers together and channel their power into one person, whom originally was supposed to
Unimind.
be the Unimind, was going to be Druig, but he just bails because reasons. And so Cersei takes this responsibility, and Icarus just decides, I guess he loved Cersei too much to kill her. Like, I guess that's the reason why he doesn't, because he fully had the ability to end her or to stop this in that moment. And but in that moment, like the whole plot was that Festus had this technology that he used or he created from the sphere that was originally in Ajak, Salma Hayek's character, that transferred into Cersei. He removes it from Cersei and then uses that technology to create these armbands that would allow them to do the Unimind thing. So all that happens, but then in the moment where Cersei needs to like do the final blow or to actually finish out her mission, all of them that are present, minus Kingo, who's not there, including Sprite and Icarus, who didn't have the armbands, like channel their power into Cersei so that she might turn Tiamat to stone. So, like, what the hell? Like, I feel like something in the plot here really just went wrong. Like, why did Sprite and Icarus become part of this like Unimind thing? They were not involved in this process at all. It just seems like uber convenient. I think they kind of wave away the explanation for this happening by saying that when Tiamat was being born, that they all were connected to him in some way, and that Tiamat also joined them in that connection. But why? Like all of that just seems so. It's awfully convenient for that to just kind of happen for the sake of the plot.
Yeah, the Unimind thing just seemed like a plot contrivance. I think it is actually based on comic lore, but it just kind of seemed like it came out of left field in the actual movie. So, and it really it wasn't explained very well, which kind of made it not that engaging of a
Easy
plot
to
point.
bullshit, maybe.
Yeah, and you know what? It is what it is, and I do think it kind of hurt the movie more than it helped for sure.
Mhm.
But I kind of get what they're going for. Why Sprite and Icarus kind of came back in the fold and helped her in the end. I think that was a plot point. Though I get what you're saying though. It was kind of stupid. But and ultimately I agree with you. But
Mhm.
it's a Marvel movie, you know. They always have this kind of weird shit.
See, it's not the weirdness of it that bothers me. It's that, like, we've kind of briefly touched on this before, in that, like, you don't necessarily go to see Marvel movies or films associated with Marvel for the plots of the movie. I don't think the plot of the film is necessarily something that is the most engaging part of the experience. It's how it's how complete and detailed everything around the plot is. You know, hints and nods to other properties, the interactions between the characters and how they connect to later or earlier storylines, and just little things like that. It's all the little details that come together that make the MCU what it is and what makes it so engaging, why people love it so much.
Yeah.
So, for little details like this, like you can just write off, you know, that like, oh, well, Sprite and Icarus didn't have armbands, but whatever. You know, like that to me seems like something that, like, as part of the plot, is a hole that could otherwise be filled by a detail that was filled somewhere else in the film, but that wasn't really the case. It just kind of seemed they waved off this notion of the Unimind was a creation or an idea brought forward by Fastos, who was to, create these bracelets that they would all get that would allow them to create the Unimind. And for Sprite and Icarus to be included in that just kind of willy-nilly, it just seems like it completely misses the point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say I sit here and get really impassioned about it and disagree with you, because I don't disagree with you, but at the same time, it's just, it is what it is, and it's not something I like about the Marvel movies necessarily. I think sometimes they sacrifice common sense for just keeping the plot moving. So they just kind of like, throw out some, and it's not just the Marvel movies that do this. It's, these big movies like this, they just throw out like bullshit, like, you just kind of go along with it because, you're just trying to get to the next action scene. So I'm not forgiving it for that, but at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and be like, I
don't know though. Like, I think there are just certain parts of the plot of this movie that don't make a tremendous amount of sense. One of them being, why did they go after their ship, which the ship name is the Domo? Is that what it's called? Yeah.
I think so. The Noma.
They go for the ship last. Like, that's the final piece of their puzzle, and that's where they find the speedster Makari. Like, would it not have made more sense for them to go after Makari and the ship first, so as to speed their journey along, so they're not having to take like an airliner as supplied by Kingo to go get their friends and family? Like, seems a little silly. Like, it's like literally the two fastest things they have at their disposal, the ship and Makari, are the last things they get. And the fact that Makari has just been chilling out underground with the ship the whole time, like, where did she get all this stuff that's now inhabiting the ship? She's been reading this whole time. She talks about being bored. Why didn't you leave the ship? Like, that just seems like such a weird thing for her to talk about. Oh, my boredom has ended. Like, that's a line from the movie. And like, well, why didn't you leave? You're underground in a ship when there's a whole world around you to discover that's changed dramatically from Babylon. Like, why?
Well, I mean, in theory, and I don't know if does it say overtly that she never leaves the ship. Like maybe
It doesn't necessarily say that she never left the ship.
Zooms out there and hangs out, and then she lives.
How do you zoom out from underground? The ship is under dirt, like hundreds of tons of dirt. Like, how? It just seems.
I don't know.
Like, mind you, I will point out, I do still like this movie, but the plot just kind of was like, whatever with some of these details. But that's not generally what Marvel does, though. And so I think there's a certain laziness about this movie and how they approach the plot that kind of bothers me. That, like, they go after the ship last when it would have made sense to go for it first. Was like that, I can just give, I can say, okay, whatever, order of operations, who cares? But like, she's wearing modern day clothing while having been in this ship seemingly for however long. Like, how does she leave? How does she sustain herself? She doesn't know she's a robot at this point. They have to explain that shit to her.
Well, she does think she's an Eternal, which means that she does. I mean, they know they're Eternal. I just don't know they're robots.
Yeah, I mean, but like, do they still need sustenance? Like, she'd want to eat, right? Or drink water, like any of that.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
It's kind of like, I don't know. It just seems like a lot of details that could have been avoided if they just been like, oh, hey, Makari, welcome to the fold, and then like had her being involved with everything. Like, they didn't need a speedster to go get everyone, but they could have certainly used the spaceship rather than like taking Kingo's jet everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I don't know. beats me, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just I don't know, like it's little things like that. And like some of the other issues I had with this movie. Two of the characters in question are specifically Kit Harrington and Salma Hayek. It's a
Oh, Ajax, I forgot about talk about her. There we go.
yeah, like yeah, with Ajax, um, I didn't necessarily find her a super compelling character. Like I think that she was the what would be the phrase I'd use for her? Like she's like the mother hen
The Den
of
Mother.
yeah, like the den mother of the Eternals, which like I think that's a necessary character, whether it be a mother or a father in this case, doesn't really matter.
I think Ajax in the comics is actually male. So
Yes, or at least as far as I'm aware. I got a brief history of some of the Eternals from having seen this movie at the Alamo. Um, but like I think Salma Hayek did a fine job for what little time she spent in the movie actually doing things. Kit Harrington, on the other hand, just bookends this movie literally. Like he's there like near the very beginning of the movie, and he's there at the literal very end of the movie. And like including him and as a member of this movie, and to have him cast as Black Knight definitely seems a bit of a disservice and a bit of a debate. It's like, yeah, he's technically there. He does fuck all in this movie though.
yeah, they're also setting things up for the future, which Marvel does really well.
Mhm.
And honestly, I don't think most people even know who the Black Knight is, unless you're like into this the kind of stuff. So
Yeah, and I would count myself among them. I don't really know that much about Black Knight. Knowing now that the voice that calls out to what you said his name was Dane Whitman, yeah, that Dane is called out to by who we now know as Blade, or at least his voice, is really cool. I think that's really cool. I think that's one of the cooler after credit sequences we've seen. I will say that I love that Patton Oswalt does the voice of a dwarf in this. Like, I think that's hysterical. Showing up and introducing Star Fox, or I think is he Eros? That was his name. Yeah, Eros with an E.
1 second.
Hmm?
Yeah, Eros is, yes, that is who Harry Styles plays.
Yeah, and I really love that after credit scene. Really enjoyed that, and the whole after credit scene with Dane Whitman or Black Knight Kit Harrington. I thought was really good.
Yeah, I definitely got from that Harry Styles scene with Eros. I got a heavy metal vibe, like that really awful 80s movie from it. And whenever that happens, I just always get really excited because I love the feeling of that movie, and them having that here, this made my day. I was really excited by it, and probably everyone else is like, what the hell is this? I really liked it. So
I mean, it's one of those moments that I don't know, it's similar to like Howard the Duck showing up at the end of, was he at the end of the original Guardians? Was that where he was?
I don't. It's either, yeah, it's one of the Guardian movies. I don't remember.
Yeah,
I think it's.
like
I do think it's the.
there's the
one.
second
I'm gonna say
or the first one. Yeah.
I could be wrong.
But like it's one of those things that like this character is now on screen being voiced by an actor in an MCU movie. So this is just reality now. And so when that moment happened, it was entirely possible for an anthropomorphic duck to be walking around talking in the MCU. Was it likely for that to go anywhere else further? Who fucking knows? But the moment Patton Oswalt's character shows up, Pip, it's like, all right, dwarves, dope. Like that's a thing. Like that's a thing that just happens now. Okay. Or I
Well,
guess
I
he's
mean,
not a
technically, I guess they already had dwarfs because uh Peter Dinklage technically I think played like a giant dwarf in Endgame or
true,
in
but like
Infinity
he
War.
was like he kind of breaks the mold in that way. And I kind of looked at Peter Dinklage's character like as kind of like a little on the nose humor in terms of
Oxymoronic
like, yeah, like he's
giant dwarf.
a giant dwarf. Yeah. And actually, to correct myself, I do have to say that Patton Oswalt, as of IMDb, is credited as Pip the Troll. So he's not a dwarf, he is a troll. But regardless, he is a small in stature figure whom, like, that type of character we have not seen in the MCU. So it's just further
Yeah.
expanding the boundaries.
I will say that I don't think the CGI was great for that scene, but I still kind of liked it.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree that I think that when he showed up and was initially introducing Star Fox, which still the name Star Fox really throws me off. It brings me back, like we were talking about earlier. The nostalgia train comes in hard for an N64 title. But yeah, he didn't look amazing. Definitely very I think I guess his animation style fits well within after credits
Yeah, yeah. Maybe they
sequences.
just didn't have enough time to work on the CGI to get it to where it needed to be, but
Mm,
it was fine. Like I said, I really enjoyed those final scenes. Actually, I thought they were really cool. Um, I think they're really pulpy and off the wall bonkers, which is where I love.
mhm.
I'd love to see the MCU go, and it is going that way with like all this like crazy multiverse. And I love the cosmic MCU too. I just find it really
Mhm.
just insanity. They go real pulp with the cosmic universe, which with like outside Earth, which I kind of love. So
Yeah,
um,
and I agree. I'm super into that. Like I think that's going to be really cool down the road.
yeah. And now they're going
Um,
paranormal too. I mean, I don't know if
mhm.
you had the opportunity to see the Disney Plus Day stuff on the new Marvel shows coming to Disney Plus, but
Oh no.
that could be kind of fun to talk about, albeit briefly, I think. But I
Mhm.
think maybe we should just wrap up like our overall views on this movie, maybe give it a grade, and then just run through the Disney Plus Marvel stuff real fast, and then
Sure.
I think we're another excellent episode.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. Yeah, so I guess what are your finishing thoughts, and then what would you give a grade on a scale of 10?
Um, I actually overall really enjoyed the film. I've thought about it a lot since I've seen it, which isn't usually a I don't usually do that with MCU movies. They kind of are in one ear and out the other, and like I'm moving on to the next thing. But
Sure.
this one, I don't know if it was just the director, the way it was directed. I really do like Chloe Zhao as a director,
Mhm.
and I love the lore building. It's kind of like sometimes my favorite episodes on TV shows are when they just build up the lore. Like they did that a few times on Lost, and I always love those episodes where they build up the lore a little bit. And I think this one was really fun in that regard. So I was excited
Sure.
about that. And overall, as far as a grade score, is it top tier MCU? Probably not, but I still really enjoyed it, and I would still give it like a solid score. Like for me, I probably would give it maybe a 7 or 7.5 out of 10. Like I did enjoy it quite a bit, and I was personally pretty entertained through the whole movie. Like I thought it flowed well. I was engaged. The characters I thought were actually pretty interesting to say the least. So
Mhm.
yeah, that was my overall opinion.
Yeah, I think I do agree with you mostly. I think the plot is just the weakest part of this movie, and it is something that just sticks with me and make I was so in love with this movie for the first two-thirds of it. And then that final third really just kind of killed it for me in terms of like just the plot seeming to make any sense. Um, I think there are plenty of holes to point out, probably more than I've even gotten to in my critique. Um, that being said, I think that the um, the ratings that we're seeing right now, like I know that generally my point of view is from Rotten Tomatoes. It seems to be you get an aggregate score of critics and just normal people giving a grade.
Like you and me, just a couple of
Yeah, just a
normal
couple of normal idiots,
Joes.
having our opinions thrown out there.
Yeah.
I think the official score right now as of recording is 47% for critics and is 80% for audience. And I think the true score lies somewhere more in the 60s. I think like a 6 to a 6.5 out of 10. That is what I would give Eternals. Um, I think the cast did a really good job, but there were a couple of weak points in the main cast, like the main two, Cersei and Arcturus, that kind of just made me go blech in terms of their characters and their arcs. And then some of the issues with the plot, but otherwise, like I think a 6 to 6.5 out of 10 is a fair rating. Like I think it was still a very fun movie. And I think the ratings from a critical point of view are a little harsh on this. It's it's a little different than a normal Marvel movie, but not different enough to where I think a grading like that is really entirely fair. So that's kind of
Oh
where I would
yeah.
leave it.
No way does it deserve that rating. I mean, this is so
Mhm.
much better than so much other crap that's put out there. I don't know. I think the blood was in the water and then uh
Yeah, I mean,
it
there's
just
been a
tore
lot of
into it.
controversy around this movie in terms of, I don't know, I mean, having an openly gay couple in the movie is probably a point of contention for some people.
Well, I hope
Um,
that wouldn't affect people's grading of this film overall, even if they didn't necessarily agree with it. But I
I
think
think
that'd
you're
be
giving, I think you're giving people a lot of credit, but that's
yeah. I mean, I think
nice.
critics in general tend to err, at least in the US, more on the liberal side. So I can't see,
Mhm.
unless there's some internal bias, I don't see them like grading it down because there was that in there. I mean, for me, like that stuff, I'm glad they included it. Um, and but in a way, I think it's good that it didn't even really register with me. I didn't even like they didn't like make a point about it. Like, oh, there's this gay couple. Like, I think it's kind of like, oh, here's a gay couple. Like, they're just having a normal life, and I think that's the way it should be. So I appreciated that. So there you
Yeah,
go.
man, they have a really short consensus on this.
The other question too. I know you haven't given your. Well, you did. You said 6 to 6.5. But
Mhm.
I don't know if we have time to get into this today. But it'd be kind of fun to like kind of compare this one with like Dune, since they kind of came out close
Sure.
together, and there seems to be some sort of I don't know, like comparison between the two, just because they're sort of big blockbusters that
They're big scientific or like sci-fi
yeah
based properties.
with a focus on I think cinematography and just film
Mhm.
in general. It's not like they're not like just your normal big dumb blockbuster. At least they don't portray themselves that way. Anyway,
I mean, I would put Eternals well above Dune in terms of the characters and in
oh yeah,
terms of the interactions between the characters. I
100%
think
agree there.
I think it's the reverse though plot wise. I think Dune has a stronger plot than Eternals does overall, and it's just more in the execution and more of how things make sense because Dune leans really hard into the political side of things in terms of how this whole universe or like galaxy, however you want to put it, fits together. Whereas Eternals, I have issues with plot holes and things that don't seemingly make sense to me or things that seem egregious in by comparison. So I think overall Dune is a better movie overall, but I will say that I like Eternals better just from a personal standpoint.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, and I think I would agree with that. Like, I do think Dune is the better movie, but I did kind of enjoy Eternals more. So
Yeah. And maybe that's just a personal bias. I know that both of us are big fans of the MCU in general, and
yeah,
I know that I haven't read Dune, and so maybe a fan of Dune the book would be more biased towards Dune the film, perhaps. Um, but yeah, no, like I just think that Dune has a more complete world, I think, and maybe that's just because Eternals is very fresh to a lot of people. I know you and I have very little exposure to Eternals. Um, Most of what I've known about this movie was from spoilers that you and I talked about in advance, and the very brief little bit of history I got from Alamo Drafthouse before my viewing. But I don't know. Yeah, I think actually it's a good question. I don't know where Dune sits right now on Rotten Tomatoes for a point of reference since we're bringing it up. Yeah, Dune has an 83, and I think that is a huge discrepancy that I think is very unwarranted.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think Dune's a better movie, but I don't think it's nearly that much better.
No, I don't think so either.
And I'd have to dig into the like critic ratings of what people were talking about with Eternals to like really know what people's issues with it were. I know some of my issues like may or may not come up, or maybe I'm just being, contrarian. I don't know. Because the audience score, okay, for comparison's sake, just real quick, Eternals on Rotten Tomatoes has an 80% audience score, and then Dune has a 90% audience score.
Okay.
So, and that is, there are 5,000 plus certified ratings or verified ratings for both movies. I don't know the exact number, but it's 5,000 plus on both. So a lot of people have a lot of opinions audience wise, but they definitely lean into the both of them being better than critically how they were received.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it'd be an interesting topic to kind of explore more. Before we leave too, I was just going to run through these announcements from Marvel on Friday. I think you're going to like some of these, actually, specifically one. Oh, I don't know. Maybe you don't know much about that show. So yeah, we got some new footage of She-Hulk, Moon Knight, and Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel actually got delayed back until next summer of 2022. It was supposed to come out later this year. So,
Okay.
and I gotta admit, looking at that show, I'm a little bit annoyed that they changed her power set. I don't really like it. Like they're like, apparently her power set's gonna be more like energy. Like she can almost do like kind of Green Lantern energy powers or something. And you know who Miss Marvel in the comic, like she can
Yeah,
embiggen
she does
herself.
she's
Yeah.
this kind of stretchy. She's like a female Mr. Fantastic. Anyway.
Yeah. And except I think Mr. Fantastic doesn't really like enlarge himself like that. I think he's just more stretchy.
He stretches, yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, if I was smart, and this is frustrating. I can pull up some pictures real fast too, and I'm not going to linger too long on this, but
because I did watch a brief little snippet of the Moon Knight footage.
Yeah, you don't really see too much, really, but I'm excited for that show. I think it should be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think Moon Knight is like, I think the best, maybe not the best, what like he immediately reminds me of is like kind of he's very similar to Daredevil, or not Daredevil, I'm sorry, Deadpool in a lot of ways, like, and how he kind of approaches the world. They're both Marvel properties, but I think Moon Knight is a property that's more closely linked to like Disney and Marvel rather than Fox and Marvel. Or wait, no, I guess Fox is part of the.
Yeah, and Moon Knight, I think traditionally he's sort of been like a Batman analog. He's essentially, I think he's insane in a way. Like he actually dreams some of this stuff, and like apparently his dreams are actually him becoming Moon Knight. So he thinks he's losing his mind.
Yeah, and he has like a voice in his head. Like
yeah. Here's some of the footage. This is Kamala Khan, and Yeah, it's exciting, I guess.
I
You
mean,
can see
like
her in her outfit there. I actually, we're probably
I
gonna.
think I think this is her in a costume for that's Captain Marvel's costume, but
Well, her costume, I think, is supposed to look like Captain Marvel because she is Miss Marvel. So there's a little bit of. Anyway, I don't know. We'll see. You're right, though. This is probably her, not her official costume. This is her like homemade costume. I'm assuming.
yeah, because that like she's got like the mohawk on the top of her head, just like Captain Marvel
Yeah,
does.
yeah, yeah. You're right about that. I didn't pick up on that before, which is kind of stupid to say.
So, but no,
Um,
I mean, like it makes sense given their names, but it does if what you're saying is accurate, and I assume it is, that like they're changing her power set to be kind of more like energy manipulation. The only thing that really that like Captain Marvel and Ms. Marvel have in common is Marvel, the name, literally in their own, superhero persona
Yeah.
title.
well, also
Um,
taking away apparently her connection to the shit. Why am I think can't think of the? They made a show about them, and I'm drawing a blank on what they're called. They like live on the moon.
Jeez, I'm trying to
You know,
think.
the Black Bolt, and there's like a lady who has like Medusa hair. Why am I drawing a blank on?
Oh, it's the oh my god, it's like a big point of contrivance in the Civil War II. Um,
Man, I don't know. I can't think of what they're called right now. It's very frustrating.
Civil War II.
He is.
With Brian.
I can't. I find this. It's driving me crazy.
Main characters.
Inhumans.
Inhumans, yes. There you go. Jeez.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's that. We got some new footage of obviously Moon Knight, which we already discussed. Not too much footage, but I do think Oscar Isaac's going to do a great job with that. And then we also got some She-Hulk footage, which is kind of exciting. And it does look like she is not going to be the newer version of She-Hulk, who's kind of like buffed out like Hulk. She's more feminine, I guess, in her appearance. But I think of all the shows, I'm probably most excited for She-Hulk. And then as far as other new shows that they've announced, so they officially announced What If Season 2. I think that was already around. Secret
Ooh.
Invasion, they had this kind of sweet new image of Nick Fury.
Yeah, it was
did you
him
see
kind of
that?
like being a little more grayed and bearded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There it is. And you can actually see his eye. The cat
Yeah.
scratches, obviously, is kind of dumb, but
Which is funny for
yeah.
a lot of different reasons.
And then as far as like newer stuff here, so they also have Ironheart. They put that out there, which is going to introduce us to Riri Williams as basically the new Iron Man.
Now, is that more of just like a splash screen of
Yeah.
like
Well, they released
Ironheart
like
is coming?
yeah, they released like a new. Well, here, why don't I have that up there? Yeah, here we go. Okay, so then they also announced Marvel Zombies. So they announced three new animated shows. Marvel Zombies, that's gonna have its whole own TV show. Spider-Man Freshman Year, which apparently is like gonna be about Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man before we saw him in the MCU. So before his first movie, and then probably the biggest announcement, they're continuing the old X-Men series on Fox. It's gonna be called X-Men 97.
Oh, they're like doing like a new season of the animated series.
Yeah.
Okay, that's dope as hell.
I don't know. I can't think it'll be part of the MCU. Maybe a certain part of the multiverse or something. I don't know. Maybe
it'll probably be how they build up characters we see from that. Will probably end up with live action counterparts. That would be my guess.
And then I guess lastly, so there was some rumors about these shows before, but they were officially announced. So we are going to get also I Am Groot's down there, not to forget about that one. But Echo is going to become a show, which that's going to be a spin-off character from the Hawkeye show that's coming out, I think, in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And she's actually the
Echo.
daughter of Kingpin. And if the rumors are to be believed, then Vincent D'Onofrio is going to be returning as the Kingpin, not only in the new Hawkeye series, but also in Echo, as well as a lot of the old characters from the Daredevil show, like Foggy, and I think his love interest, and I can't remember.
Dude,
Yeah.
I am super down for that because all of the I feel like all most of the Netflix Marvel series actors and actresses I think deserve a place in the MCU.
Yeah. I mean,
With
and not to get too sidetracked here, I'll talk about that once I'm through these, because there's only
yeah,
one last one I guess here to mention, and that's Agatha, House of Harkness. So that is going to be a show moving forward.
yeah,
So that's like a spin-off of WandaVision, which I think is deserved. Hopefully that's
mhm,
good. I do kind of feel like we might be getting into the Marvel territory where I'm like, do all these characters deserve their own show? But
yeah. Well, I mean, like I Am Groot definitely is going to be like a mini series, I'm sure.
yeah, I believe it's animated too. And in fact, I'm 100% sure it's animated.
Yeah,
So
which like that's fine. What if season two will be very interesting, but again, animated. Did you say that Marvel Zombies? I'm sure Marvel Zombies will be animated, right?
yeah, it's going to
So,
be animated. And
um,
I don't think they've announced whether it's a continuation of the What If episode, but I believe it probably will be. So
I don't know. I would be totally down for them just doing an animated adaptation of the comic. I think because like that logo they have there, I think is like pretty much verbatim what they have in the comic.
yeah, I think it'd be really cool if they just
I,
did basically like an adaptation like they did for Invincible, I think that'd be really sweet. But
yeah, no, I think that would fit very well
but
because like I think it's a
they're not
very
going to do that
interesting.
though. They're not going
I
to do
would
that.
love for them. I mean, if they made it separate enough, like turn it. Oh man, I want like a rated R Marvel Zombies. I want fucking blood flying. I want
Yeah.
limbs coming
The thing
off.
is, that would be on Hulu though. There's no way they would put that on Disney Plus. You
I
know?
don't know. I want it. We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see. But
Yeah. I guess, and then
um,
the last thing I was going to mention here, because I
mhm.
don't know if you saw this, but did you see those leaked Spider-Man images?
Yes.
Yeah.
The I mean, this is like spoiler 1,000 territory, but like brief pause.
I won't even put them up because
Yeah,
I don't want to do that. So I'm going to stop the share.
but it appears that there are screenshot or not screenshots, but yeah, like photos that are out there, grainy as they may be, of Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire all standing together with like what looks like on a pier or something in their respective spider suits.
Yeah, and
So
there's another image too. I'm assuming you saw that one with
uh,
Charlie Cox as Daredevil.
yes, they're sitting at a table. It's
Hmm.
Tom
And I
Holland
guess he's
with
not as Daredevil. I guess he's just a lawyer in that scene. But
yeah, he's yeah, Matt
Matt
Murdock
Murdock, yeah,
with Happy and
yeah, Aunt May and Tom Holland as Spider-Man.
yeah, and Ant-Man Tom Holland. And so oh, actually that has some interesting plot ideas because it's probably Matt Murdock is going to represent Tom or I guess Peter
Yeah, Tom Holland.
in court. One superhero representing another, but not knowing that he's Daredevil.
Yeah,
And that Happy's there to probably, I don't know, pay the bills more or less with the Stark fortune, however
yeah,
that goes.
yeah,
Happy is essentially Alfred at this point for Tony.
yeah. And the whole story behind that leak is pretty interesting because it was a leaker called John Campia, I think, right?
Okay,
Anyway, he put out those images on Twitter. He's like, "Oh, are these real or not?" And there's a lot of conspiracies that he actually knew what he was doing. But
sure,
I guess,
playing dumb.
yeah. And then he put his like watermark on the images too. And people were like, "What are you doing, guy? Leaking these like really crazy photos and
He's
putting your watermark on."
begging to get sued. It's like,
Yeah.
please sue me. He's a
Well, he came out like a
masochist.
day after that and like kind of gave like a blow by blow of what happened. And he said Sony called him and were like, who leaked these images to you and all this stuff. And he's like, which basically confirms that they were legit.
Yeah,
And but he also said there was like two other images that he didn't put out because he thought they were too insane. Like there's no way that they were real. And so people are like, what else did he have that he's not?
yeah. This is totally I think this is totally a manufactured spoiler or leak because we all know all these actors have been confirmed already for the movies. Like anyone who's paying a modicum of attention knows that
Well, I mean,
Tobey Maguire
Sony's
and Andrew Garfield are attached to
well,
these
they're like
movies.
playing it really weirdly close to the chest, which is like a whole new thing. And saying that out loud, like I'm like, maybe this was part of their plan. Like maybe they leaked these on purpose.
Yeah, I
Because
100%. They
yeah,
100% did. Like they're trying to hype up the movie.
yeah. No, I mean, I kind of almost think that this was purposely done because, like, I don't know much about this John Campion guy, but from what I've heard, that he's actually usually pretty like this isn't like his typical MO. This isn't something he would usually do. So it makes me wonder if he wasn't actually contacted by Sony or Marvel Studios, and they're like, hey, we want these images out there, like we want to like build up hype for this thing, and we're not gonna. I think, and I've heard they're gonna release a new trailer next week, so I'm kind of curious if their hand wasn't forced or if it's some sort of grander marketing strategy that we're not aware of. But it's kind of interesting just how this whole thing is playing out with.
Yeah, like this, I don't know, like my just at a glance, I'm immediately thinking this is like some manufactured thing that they did
Well,
to
like, and you know what
try
he
and
said? You know what he said? Why he put him up there? He's like, look at Tobey Maguire's dick. That does. I think he was saying like it didn't look like a true image or like a real image from the film because of the way his
yeah,
dick looked
there's
or something.
that 100% to me seems like he's purposely avoiding the fact that like, oh look, all three of them are fucking together in this movie. That's insane. That's the insane part of that picture. I don't care if Tobey Maguire's dick is 3 feet long in that screenshot. Like the fact they're all there together is the crazy part. So like that
Yeah.
seems
Anyway,
yeah.
yeah, it's kind of crazy how the spoilers for this film has gotten out of control. Also, as just an aside too, they basically announced that Doctor Strange is in heavy reshoots right now, and all the scuttlebutt is saying that they're adding like a ton of crazy like cameos in it. So
Interesting.
I guess we'll see about that. And then I guess
Ooh.
another piece of
Mhm.
trivia out there right now is that Patty Jenkins' Rogue One is basically put on indefinite hold, and the rumored movie that will now be coming out in 2023 from Star Wars, which if this is true, this is huge to me at least, would be they're putting out a rumor has it that they're putting out a Knights of the Old Republic film in 2023, which I think is a fucking amazing idea. If that's because I feel like they haven't had Star Wars movies for years now. When I say years, like it's like four or something. But at the same time, you don't want to just come back with this like measly Rogue One film. Like you want like to come back with like a splash and be like, this Star Wars movies is like the Lord of the Rings of Star Wars, and you're gonna want to see this shit. We're building up like the mythos here like crazy, and I'm a huge lore guy, so I would love to see that. So
And that would actually like that tracks pretty well with some of the video game stuff coming out too.
mhm.
Like we're getting a remaster of Knights of the Old Republic of the original game coming out, and then like as far as I'm aware, there's a direct sequel coming out too. So like it stands to reason that we would be getting a film based out of that same time frame for Star Wars. Like so that would be that's huge if that's true.
I know I
Because
would be
yeah, you're totally right.
so excited about that. I think that'd be so amazing. Like, this is coming from someone that my knowledge of Knights of the Old Republic basically comes it's exclusively from Wikipedia. Like I love like if you do a deep dive into that stuff, it is so much fun to read. And like when I was reading that a few months ago now, I'm like, dang, I can't believe this stuff isn't in canon anymore. I really want it to be canon because it's just so freaking cool. So if they actually do this, I would be really ecstatic about it. So
Oh man, yeah, no, I think I mean it stands to reason that some of these spoilers are definitely very real.
yeah,
Um, they're in looking at some of the stuff like, and I think you're right in that Sony's reaction to a lot of this is very indicative of how on the nose some of it is. And like, what the fuck are you doing, John? Why are you showing this to the world? Is like
yeah,
Sony is like the the pissed spouse whispering in the ear of John, being like, "I swear to God, if you keep talking," like,
Yeah.
and so I think, like, I don't know. I mean, I think I've been in the camp of thinking that the Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire like all being together in this movie was all but inevitable. I think there's been way too much hype and talk and casting information that's happened for that to not happen at this point.
I mean, if so that we know that Alfred Molina's in it, we essentially know that Willem Dafoe's going to be in it just based on what we've seen in the trailers and also
Yeah.
poster they put out with freaking Green Goblin from the Maguire films actually on the poster.
Yeah. So
Um,
like,
and the Sandman and Electro, we both know are going to be in it. So if the, it would be, I think, as a fan, if they didn't have Toby and Andrew in it, at least Toby, I think that would be a disservice. I think if I didn't see them at least make a cameo in the film, and from everything I've heard, they're actually going to play pretty big roles in the film. Like they're not like as like measly little roles. They have like pretty extensive roles in the movie. Um,
you know, actually, I've I've come up with an idea in my head. I want to earmark this here and now about this being a thing. So this is my theory that so the whole plot of the multiverse happening is going to, like, that's all going to happen. That's going to be thing. Whatever the hell it is, don't care. In terms of this plot point, this is what's going to cement that Peter can go back to his normal life. This is going to be the thing that saves him from Mysterio's outing of his secret identity, because there's going to be multiple Spider-Men and they're going to be able to prove that, like, oh, look, there's Spider-Man now. And
Yeah.
I'm Peter. Like, so that's how that movie's going to end. Like, that's how that's going to wrap, is Peter being exonerated of him being Spider-Man, so that the normal MCU rhythm can go back to what it was with his secret identity.
Yeah, and like Holland's really hyping this up as his last Spider-Man film, and
Mm-hmm.
personally, I want him to stick around. I'd be kind of disappointed if he didn't. So I want to see him. Like I feel like so far with the Spider-Man movies, we've kind of just gotten him in high school, and we haven't really seen him become Spider-Man. He still kind of feels like he's Tony Stark in training or something. So I'd be excited just to see him have just like a few, you know, adventures just set in New York City where he's swinging around and has to stop some, you know, like Rhino or Scorpion, because they were setting up Scorpion before, you know. So like I wouldn't mind seeing him come back, and you know,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more Tom Holland can do with that character, and that is one thing. They're going like full balls to the wall with this film, and anything that comes after this, it might feel a little bit, you know, let down. But
I don't know. I
I
mean,
do think Venom will probably be incorporated in Spider-Man 4. I would be really surprised if he wasn't. So
yeah, I think they have at least one more Spider-Man movie that could come out after No Way Home, for sure. Like, because yeah, I think Venom needs to be addressed, I think,
yeah,
in Spider-Man lore. Like, regardless of how you feel about the Venom movies, I know how I feel about them, but like, Venom is an integral part of Spider-Man's story, and for him to not be fleshed out in some way in the MCU would feel like kind of a crime. So, especially like we're like fans of the Sony Spider-Man games, like where we've gotten Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales. We have a new Spider-Man 2 coming out in the future, and
yeah.
where like Venom is an integral part of the story of that game,
Well,
including Miles Morales. So
there's also rumors out there too that Sony is going to be making a Spider-Woman movie that's going to be produced along with Marvel Studios. So, because
okay,
there are other ones besides the Spider-Man movies, I don't think Marvel's been really that involved with, besides maybe like a few details connecting it to the wider MCU.
sure.
So it'd be kind of interesting to see what they do with Spider-Man Woman. I would assume that's going to be Gwen Stacy, but yeah,
I
and
don't know.
I'm certain
I
they'll have
mean,
Miles Morales come in at some point because he's a pretty popular character. So.
I don't know if Spider-Man will have anything to do with Gwen Stacy though. Spider-Woman's usually a completely separate.
Oh, is she? I think I just got it mixed up with like into the
Yeah.
Spider-Verse, maybe that character.
Yeah, because generally, very creatively, Gwen Stacy is Spider Gwen, or she's
Okay,
referred to that.
Spider-Gwen, that's right. I remember
Um,
when that came out, actually. I remember that now.
and so
They should have Spider-Gwen instead of Spider-Woman, in my opinion, but
I would tend to agree. I think, mind you, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know very much about Spider Woman. Spider
they should
Woman.
even get that actress back to play Spider-Gwen from the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I can't remember her name right now. Emma Stone. Yeah, they should get Emma Stone back.
See, Spider Woman. So I guess her name is Jessica Drew. And so I know very little about her. I don't even like know where she gets her powers from. I just know her name from having very quickly Googled her. So but yeah, like it would be cool for her to get brought into the fold, but I do think that the connection to Spider-Verse would be really cool to bring about Gwen Stacy as
Gwen.
to Spider Gwen. Yeah, I mean, like I think that would be a little bit more, I don't want to say interesting. I just don't know enough about Spider Woman to make a judgment call. Like I'm super biased in that I know Spider Gwen, and I think she would be a cool addition.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I think that's
I always like, oh, we're gonna get through this real fast, and then we always go on sidetrack. But today, I think it was actually pretty relevant and entertaining to talk about.
Well, there's a ton of stuff to talk about. Eternals came out, and all these leaks, and then I didn't even know about this like Disney Plus dump.
Yeah, there was like a huge, like people like, we were going to get a Kenobi trailer with this Disney Plus day, and they just released the teaser that they released like last year from like the investors call or something, and people were like, what the heck? We wanted Andor, we wanted Kenobi, we wanted so much, and you gave us like nothing.
I don't know. I'm excited for all these properties. But like I don't know, you know about my opinion about like Sony's hand and all this Spider-Man stuff. Like I feel like they ultimately are not very good at putting out movies that are good. Because
I will say this though, like as much as I enjoy the MCU, like I do kind of wish that they would, like I want like a more adult version of Marvel Zombies, like, and I don't know what not Daredevil, I don't know what Deadpool is gonna look like, if that's gonna be PG-13 or what. So
yeah,
I'm a little like as much as I like them, I do want to see them be able to be more adult, you know. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know.
That's one thing DC definitely has on them, I think, is the ability to like put out an R movie. So
agreed. Yeah, and I think I would like for, I don't know. I mean, I would kind of like for Disney to use Sony as the vehicle for that, to be able to put more of their like quote unquote edgy content for ratings that are higher than like PG-13.
Well, it's like I heard like the guy that played Punisher in the Netflix shows, he was actually saying like, I don't even know if I want to come back, like if it's not going to be the version of the character that everyone wants to see, and that's a hyper violent character. That's what he's known for. So
yeah,
do you really want a Disney-fied Punisher?
Yeah, right. Like Punisher just has no place in the MCU in terms of like how he does business generally, and really neither does Deadpool. Like Deadpool is very tongue-in-cheek humor, fourth wall breaking, but he murders the hell out of people. Like he has no problem with murder. Whereas, everyone else in the MCU has some issue with murder.
I mean, even like a character like Wolverine is really violent. Like he's known for being, just the nature of his weapons, like, or his powers is very violent. So
yeah, well, I mean, you look at the original X-Men movies, and like Wolverine and the rest of them really don't have a problem with killing people.
Like, I really love Wolverine. He's probably my favorite Marvel character. Personally, I don't even really like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I love Wolverine and like those Marvel Ultimate Alliance games, and Wolverine from like the X-Men cartoons. Like I love that version of him. Like
I played like 10 different characters in those games, and you always played Wolverine.
Like, I just love his powers. It's so cool, and I love the actor who does his voice. This like kind of like gruff, the gruff voice he
Yeah,
has. I think they're getting almost every single voice actor back for this new show too. By the way, so,
I'm the best
from
at
the,
what I do, and what I do
yeah,
isn't very nice.
yeah,
Like, such a corny line, but
hey there, bub. Yeah,
yeah.
he's
What'd
such
you
a
say
cool
to me?
character, and it's so
Yeah.
sad he's not. I mean, I wish he could have been in the Avengers movies, you know, because he's so cool.
Actually, yeah, I mean, there's a teaser out for a Wolverine game that's being made by Insomniac, the same people who've made the Spider-Man games.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, you should check out that trailer because
Yeah,
it's
though he's a cool character, I don't really see him being quite as fun to play as like a Spider-Man, just because Spider-Man is, you know, you swing around. So
mhm.
you're kind of
Yeah.
like, you're kind of just like as Wolverine, you're this like little violent tank.
Yeah. So, yeah, but if there's a company that I trust at this point to do justice to Wolverine as a character, I would trust in Insomniac because both Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales were both tremendously good games. Um, I think they really did a good job of fleshing out those characters super well
Yeah.
and making them fun to play. The original Spider-Man on PS4 is very much in line with the like Batman Arkham games in that like playing those games, you feel like Batman. And playing this Sony Spider-Man game, you feel like Spider-Man. And like it's just so fun to get to engage with those characters in those ways. And yeah, them being at the helm for Wolverine, I am super on board. I think they're going to do a really good job, and I'm looking forward to seeing Wolverine brought into the MCU. It's coming. Like I think we're going to get it sooner than we're expecting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
They're really not rushing this X-Men integration very quickly.
No.
I should probably get going though.
I was gonna say, that being said, yeah, you have somewhere to be this evening. So yeah, we have crossed a whole bunch of topics tonight. Good gravy. But yeah, it's been a fun episode. Nick, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, just I always enjoy talking to you, Matt. I think it was a good evening of discussion. So.
Yeah, no, I think we covered a lot of topics, and I think it was good talking about Eternals. It's good when we have differing viewpoints on a film regarding like how good or bad or things we find as
I
point
mean,
of
overall,
contention.
I still think we agreed on this one for the most part. So it
Yeah,
wasn't that big of a divergence. But
you like it better than I did, I think, or at
yeah,
least we agree that there are things that I find that I can't get past, and worse things that you could.
I think
look
in
past.
general, I tend to be more forgiving than you do. So, at
Mhm.
least when it comes to movies, maybe. So.
Yeah, no, in real life too. I'm not a feeling too, but but no, yeah, I think this was a great episode. I hope everyone enjoyed watching us talk about the Eternals, and then just talking about all the leaks and spoilers that have been out there. So if you're not interested in being spoiled, well, sorry. But
Yeah, you just were spoiled big time, big time. The quote,
that being
"It's always sunny again." Sorry, I love that show.
that being said, thank you all for joining us this evening. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and join us for the next episode, episode 29 in the future. What will we talk about? I don't even think we know. Ooh. But hope you all have a wonderful evening, and we will catch you in the next episode.
Smell you later.